Bismillahirrahmanirrahim, dear friends. Assalamu alaikum and welcome to International Affairs with Dr. Masood. And today we are going to talk about US and China's military comparison. And we are going to compare both militaries and let you know that how these both challengers are challenging each other in the international system. So, United States of America is the number one economy in the world, and China is following the US. And very soon, China will become the number one economy. So, very quickly, let's look into it that how these two countries are militarily compatible to each other. So, if we look at the defense budget of both countries, the United States of America is clearly leading the race at $742 billion, whereas the Chinese military budget for 2022 is $229 billion. So if we look at their active military personnel, overall military personnel, their Army, Air Force, Navy, so American Navy is 1.3 million, whereas the Chinese military is 2 million. Air power, if we look at the air power of both countries, the United States of America's total aircraft are 13,247, whereas the Chinese aircraft are close to 3,285. So if we look at the fighter interceptors, they are about close to 2,000 and the Chinese are about 1,200. If we look at the dedicated attack aircraft, so they are about 783 in the United States Air Force, whereas the Chinese Air Force is close to 371. So there is a huge difference between two. When we look at the transport and logistics aircraft, United States of America is clearly leading the race with 982 aircraft, whereas the Chinese are 286 aircraft. When we look at the special mission aircraft, so Chinese are 114 and the US is clearly leading the race, 774 aircraft, special mission aircraft. Helicopters are also there with both states, but in this category, the United States of America is leading with 5,463 aircraft helicopters, whereas the Chinese are only less than 1,000. In the attack helicopter category, obviously the Americans are leading with 910 attack helicopters, whereas the Chinese are 281 attack helicopters. If we look at the land forces and the tanks with both states, they are close to each other. The Americans are leading with 6,612 tanks, where the Chinese are a little behind with 5,226 tanks. If we look at the armored vehicles, if we look at the US armored personal carriers, there are 35,000, second to China, and China lead it with 45,000. So this is how Chinese are. And if we look at the rocket projectors, the Americans are 1,300, whereas the Chinese are again leading in this category. If we look at the naval forces, obviously the Americans are 484 warship navy, whereas the Chinese are leading with 777 warships. But in this category, aircraft carriers, America is leading the race. America possesses 11 aircraft carriers, whereas the Chinese holds only 2 aircraft carriers. Helicopter carriers are 9 with the US, and China holds only 1 helicopter carrier. If we look at the destroyers in the US Navy, they are about 92, whereas the Chinese are clearly behind from the US with 41 destroyers. If we look at the frigates with America, they are 18 only, whereas the Chinese are leading with 48 frigates. If we look at the corvettes of anti-submarine warfare corvettes, warships, so Americans possess only 22, whereas the Chinese possess 70 corvettes. If we look at the submarines overall, so America possesses 68 submarines, and all these submarines are nuclear submarines, where the Chinese possess 79 overall submarines, including their conventional and nuclear submarines, where their nuclear submarines are less than the United States of America. Apart from that, if we look at the strategic petroleum reserves of both states, now these reserves are just for the emergency basis if any supplies in the international market, oil market, disrupts. So automatically, these countries would have backup for their economy. So for America, they have got backup of about 60 days of oil imports, which means they possess 727 million barrels of oil in their strategic petroleum reserves. Whereas the Chinese possess total capacity of about 500 million barrels, but they possess about 400 million barrels of oil as a strategic petroleum reserves. If we look at the proven oil reserves of both states, so America is leading the race with 42 billion barrels, whereas the Chinese are behind with 25 billion barrels, and they rely mostly on the foreign imports. Last but not least, in the UAV category, drones, which means drones, military drones, and other drones, America possesses more than 11,000 drones, and which include surveillance and armed drones as well. Whereas the Chinese possess more than 500,000 drones, and these drones are somehow, some of them are military drones, and some of them are commercial drones, and some of them are only used for surveillance and reconnaissance in small sizes and big sizes. So, last but not least, in this category, both states are also nuclear weapon states, and in this category, the United States of America clearly leads the race with 5,428 nuclear warheads. America possesses the capability in their Army, Air Force, Navy, and they have the capability to carry out nuclear strike against China from any part of the world. Whereas the Chinese possess only 350 nuclear weapons, but they are also a credible nuclear weapon state with formidable capability, missiles, which can reach the United States of America and their bases in this region and beyond. Ladies and gentlemen, let me conclude on this note that China and United States of America are very important countries in the international system, and both states possess formidable military capabilities, and these capabilities will deter each other from taking any aggressive step. So, let me conclude on this note that if you like the video, do subscribe the channel and share the video with others, and let's spread the knowledge as much as we can. With International Affairs, Dr. Masood, Allah Hafiz. Thank you.